Earlier, congressional lawmakers had approved $1 billion in the CARES Act toward the Pentagon. And the whole purpose of that funding was to ensure that the Pentagon was assisting with the Defense Production Act, essentially creating the PPE and other medical supplies that Americans needed during this pandemic. But now a new report by the Washington Post finds that that allocated money actually didn't go toward what it was intended to. The Pentagon used it for military equipment instead. So the CARES Act, which Congress passed earlier this year, gave the Pentagon money to prevent, prepare, and respond to coronavirus. But a few weeks later, the Defense Department began reshaping how it would award the money in a way that represented a major departure from Congress's intent. So just to give you some examples, and they're honestly infuriating when you think about it. Among the awards, $183 million to firms including Rolls-Royce and ArcelorMittal to maintain the shipbuilding industry, tens of millions of dollars for satellite, drone, and space surveillance technology, $80 million to a Kansas aircraft parts business suffering from the Boeing 737 MAX grounding, and the global slowdown in air travel, and $2 million for a domestic manufacturer of Army dress uniform fabric. None of this stuff is in any way tied to what the original intent was for that funding, $1 billion. It was meant to supply Americans with the masks they desperately needed. It was meant to help frontline workers with the medical equipment that they experienced massive shortages of. And if you fast forward to today, Americans are still not having their health and financial needs met. Robert Redfield, the director for the CDC, said in a Senate testimony hearing just last week that states desperately need $6 billion to distribute vaccines to Americans early next year. Many US hospitals still face a severe shortage of N95 masks. These are the types of problems that the money was originally intended to address. But hey, to be fair to the Pentagon, congressional lawmakers just don't allocate enough money to the defense industry. So, the Pentagon had no choice but to take this money and spend it on private contractors as they typically do.
Yeah, and let's be fair, poor Rolls-Royce. I mean, how are they ever going to survive without the money that was supposed to go to protect all of our healthcare through masks? So I don't know Rolls-Royce's current situation and who owns them. I do know they're mainly known for very, very, very expensive cars. So I do declare, I hope the wealthy don't run out of Rolls-Royces in the middle of this pandemic. But more importantly, to your point, we now give $750 billion every single year to the Defense Department to largely give the defense contractors. During the Bernie birthday special that we did an old clip of Bernie when he first got into Congress in the early 1990s, complaining about how we gave nearly $250 billion a year, which was more than 10 times the 10 other biggest countries combined. And 250 billion was out of control. Now it's $750 billion, but they keep taking and taking and taking no matter what. Well, what was amazing about this story, Anna, is how brazenly the Pentagon officials said, yes, but we have to keep the poor defense contractors in business.
Yep, and then that's exactly right.
And then you look at the stock performance of the defense contractors. It turns out they're perfectly great. They're paying dividends. If you are on the edge of bankruptcy, you're not paying dividends, okay? If you're not making profits, you're not paying dividends in an overwhelming number of cases. So no, they're just funneling money to people who are going to hire them later. That is another part of the corruption. First, the corrupt politicians take money from the defense contractors and then funnel $750 billion that should go to our kids, that should go to the Paid Family Leave Act, that should go to our healthcare. They funnel all the money to defense contractors. And by the way, screw over our troops who still on average coming in make only $19,000 a year. And they go, well, hey, aren't we so great to them? We also provide housing. Oh, by the way, we also provide maiming and getting killed when we send you into war, okay? But the defense contractors, they never go to war. They sit in their nice, comfortable executive suites and they make all this money. But on top of it, just to rub our noses in it, they're like, oh, there's an extra $1 billion that was supposed to go to protect your healthcare and your family's healthcare. No, we're gonna give that to the defense contractors too. And the second part of the corruption is the people making those decisions then turn around as soon as they retire from government service and get hired by defense contractors. That goes from anywhere from procurement all the way up to our top generals. So, and in fact, one of the people in that was quoted in the article is a guy who used to work at the Defense Department that now works as a lobbyist for defense contractors. So this is how we all get robbed. wolf-pack.com/join. If you don't get money out of politics, every year you're gonna force us to cover stories like this where your family's life is in danger, but the defense contractors got even richer.
So apparently Rolls-Royce also makes jet engines. So that's probably the reason why they received some of this government funding.
No, and I just want to be clear. I didn't think like, oh no, they're only making cars and they're illegally funneling money because there's not enough Grey Poupon to pass between Rolls Royces. I know they also do defense work, but yeah. And by the way, don't get me wrong. If the defense industry was in dire straits and they're all about to go bankrupt, you would want to protect your supply chain, and that would be a national security issue. We are not anywhere near that. We're not within billions of dollars, maybe even trillions of dollars near that. So they're liars. They're just funneling that money because they're the goddamn swamp, the one that Trump pretended he was gonna fix, but has only fed.
Right, and as the Washington Post reports, the Trump administration has done little to limit the defense firms from accessing multiple bailout funds at once. Because it's not just about this $1 billion. It's not requiring the companies to refrain from layoffs as a condition of receiving the awards. So they're double dipping, okay? It goes beyond taking this money, the $1 billion allocated specifically to produce masks and other equipment that we need. They're also taking advantage of the small business loans. According to this report, 10 of the approximately 30 companies known to have received the Defense Department DPA funds also received loans through the Paycheck Protection Program, another relief package created by the CARES Act. And yeah, I mean, you see where this money goes, and it's just not in any way being used on the supplies that Americans and frontline healthcare workers desperately need. And the Pentagon's not done yet. They want more. So for instance, hundreds of millions of dollars have flowed to several large established companies, meaning these are companies that were already doing well, such as GE Aviation, a subsidiary of General Electric, which received 2 awards worth $75 million in June. And then as I mentioned, Rolls-Royce, a subsidiary of it, received $22 million to upgrade a Mississippi plant because hey, renovations is where it's at during this pandemic. Using taxpayer money to upgrade your Mississippi plant seems questionable to say the least. But the Pentagon's not done. They're like, we need more money. We need more. It's not enough. Like people are losing their homes and they're really struggling, but we don't care. National security is important, even as 200,000 Americans have already died from this pandemic. Great national security we have. So the Pentagon and defense contractors have called for an additional $11 billion to be directed toward their programs. And my favorite tweet of all time is from Mike Pompeo on February 7th, where he bragged about sending masks and other medical equipment to China. Remember, that was the same day that Donald Trump had his interview with Bob Woodward and shared details of how severe this virus is, how it's airborne, how it's more lethal than the common flu. On that exact same day, Mike Pompeo posts this saying, we have coordinated with US organizations to transport more humanitarian relief to people in Wuhan. Personal protective equipment and other medical supplies donated by these organizations can help save lives in China and help protect people from coronavirus. As you guys know, we then had a massive shortage of masks and other equipment that, maybe he shouldn't have sent to China. Maybe we could have used it here in our own country. And then when Congress allocates the money necessary to produce more of it here in America, the Pentagon gives us a giant middle finger. So Cenk, I mean, look, I always cringe when I hear the phrase taxation is theft. But it kind of is right now. I mean, how is our taxpayer money going back to benefit us or help us right now? Like during this crisis, we've seen powerful people, massive corporations, government agencies like the Pentagon just loot and raid and take advantage of all that money while Americans are like, hey, do you think we could maybe get a second $1,200 paycheck? Can we get that maybe? Maybe? It's just pathetic.
Anna, you hit the nail on the head. So as Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump tell you, oh no, we ran out of money. We don't have any money for real American citizens. No, the unemployment checks that all these tens of millions of people are unemployed that you guys are getting. Nah, we don't have enough money for that. Oh, Rolls Royce? Oh, well, of course we have money for Rolls Royce. Defense contractors, General Electric. Well, you guys are the richest people in the world. So of course we're gonna take more of average taxpayers' money who are in dire straits, and we're probably gonna throw them out of their house, and we're not gonna give them masks, and we're just gonna funnel more of it to you guys. And the phrase that I think is more appropriate, Anna, is taxation without representation. So the only people in any of the stories that we're covering today of enormous governmental abuse that have objected to any of it are members of the Progressive Caucus in the Democratic Party. The Republicans love it and celebrate it, and honestly, so do the corporate Democrats. None of them object to it at all. Why? They all take the same corporate PAC money, and so it's taxation without representation. The only people that they represent are their donors. I can't emphasize it enough. You gotta get money out of politics if you don't wanna be robbed on a daily basis by this deeply corrupt government and the top companies in the world that are aiding and abetting that robbery. Wolf-pack.com.
When we come back from the break.
Yeah, sorry,
go ahead,
go to the break. Speaking of which, this weekend they're doing their annual workshop. And it feels funny to promote this portion of it, but it was top of mind because this is all about money and politics. Anna and I are gonna play Pictionary in one of the fun activities for the workshop, and you could actually play against us. So we're getting Wolfpack members to play with us. So in order to do that though, you gotta register to be a member before they have the raffle to see who's gonna play us. So wolf-pack.com/member in that case to become a member, and check out the workshop at wolf-pack.com/workshop.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.